Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling M Zenni at South Bay City in Penang. It's this big new freehold project marketed, as a Zen-inspired place. Our job is to figure out if that's real or if it's just marketing. Is it a smart buy or, well, a potential headache? We want the truth for investors and for people actually thinking of living there.
Right. And the main thing, really, the biggest takeaway up front, is that its success hinges almost entirely on future infrastructure. Completely. I mean, sure, it's close 900 meters to the Second Bridge and right next to the Bayan Lepas FIZ. That's its anchor now. But the real long-term value, that depends totally on things that aren't built yet. Penang Silicon Island and the new Mutiara Line LRT.
Okay, that really sets up a conflict, doesn't it? Future value versus, well, maybe some immediate pain, especially for investors. How do we square that?
Well, let's look at the investment side first. The pros are solid, you have to admit. It's freehold, and it's backed by Mah Sing Group. That's a Tier 1 developer, and they've actually done 5 previous projects right there in South Bay City, successfully. Plus, you've got that ready-made tenant pool from the FIZ next door. That's usually pretty stable.
Sounds good. Sounds secure.
Yeah.
But then there's the price, right?
Exactly. It's definitely a premium. You're looking at roughly RM670 to RM770 per square foot. That's higher than older places nearby. And crucially, it's got a commercial title. That means higher utility bills, higher assessment taxes, permanently. So when you actually crunch the numbers, the initial gross yield looks pretty low, around 4.25% maybe. Which means, for an investor, you're likely facing negative cash flow for, say, the first 3 to 5 years. Easily. This isn't about quick profits. It's a speculative play. Banking on capital appreciation maybe 7, even 10 years down the line. Patience is key.
Okay, so investors need deep pockets and a lot of patience. Guaranteed drain for years.
Right.
But what about someone who just wants to live there? The pitch to residents sounds completely different. They're promised a brand new apartment, loads of facilities, 34 of them smart home stuff, even a shuttle bus. To the airport, mall, future LRT. That sounds appealing.
It does sound appealing, but then you run into what we're calling the high-friction environment. First off, that low-density claim in the marketing, it just doesn't hold up.
What do the actual numbers say? How crowded will it feel?
Well, you've got 494 units packed onto just 2.72 acres. Do the math, that's about 181.6 units per acre. Objectively, that is not low density. It's actually quite high. So you can pretty much expect crowded facilities, long waits for lifts, parking challenges, regardless of the Zen decor.
Okay, so density is an issue. What else?
The biggest problem, I think, the most critical one for anyone planning to move in, is the timing. The project completion clashes directly with major construction next door. M Zenni is slated for completion around late 2028, maybe early 2029. And that's precisely when the Mutiara Line LRT construction nearby will be at its absolute peak disruption. Think major viaduct work, road closures, diversions, right at the FIZ entrance and exit.
Peak chaos, basically.
Exactly. Peak chaos, we're talking probably 3 years of serious traffic gridlock. Residents will literally move into the worst of it.
So much for Zen. You move in, and you can't even get out of your neighborhood easily. And didn't the sources also mention noise? The marketing promises serenity, but what's the reality on the ground?
Yeah, that's another major clash. You're right under the flight path for Penang International Airport. That's one source of noise. Plus, you've got all the factory buses for the FIZ running nearby, often very early in the morning. It's potentially a very noisy environment day and night. Definitely not Zen.
So bringing it all together, for someone wanting to live there,
look, if you work right there in the FIZ and you genuinely don't mind significant noise and crucially are prepared for years of severe traffic disruption, maybe, but that's a very specific profile. For most people, it seems like a tough sell for owner occupancy in those first few years.
So the bottom line for you, the potential buyer, seems clear.
Yeah.
M Zenni asks you to pay a premium price today. For a value proposition and maybe even basic livability that might not fully materialize for, almost a decade?
Right. Which leads to a final thought for you to really chew on. Given that guaranteed short-term pain, the traffic, the noise, the density, and considering there have been, let's say, anecdotal reports about build quality issues like leaks in some of the developers' other recent projects, does that Tier 1 developer reputation alone justify paying that premium and accepting all that friction for a promise that's still so far off? That's the question you need to answer.